Yeah, that's right. I said no motivational words today. Swing on them if you feel like it. I'm joking. Hello, my good people. Welcome back. It is another episode discussing these contracts. And I have basically caught y'all up to where I am in the book. So therefore, today we are winging it. Okay? No notes. No, I haven't even broke anything down yet. So this is fresh. Okay? We are learning this part together. From this part and forth, whatever I talk about, it's fresh. All right? So I hope y'all having a good day. We're going to hop right back in where we left off, and we left off talking about these great contracts of the great leaders and masters that came before us. And then we are going to get into some of these archetypes, okay? So, the Buddha's contract, let me think. Did I talk about this already? I don't think I did. If I did, oh well, we're going to go over it again, but I don't think I did. So, according to the Buddhist historians, I am not about to slaughter the name. But just know that whoever I'm talking about when I'm talking about the Buddha, okay? Buddhas. All right? So, let's see. Let's start after an astrology pronounced after a royal astrologer, pronounced that his son would become either a great warrior king or a great spiritual leader, depending on how he reacted to 4 signs. The Buddha had a wall built around his estate to protect him from the harsh realities of old age, illness, and death. One day in his late 20s, he managed to get out of the walled environment of the palace and roam the streets of his own town to see how the people were living. It was then that he encountered the 4 signs that the astrology had predicted would change his life. The sign and the sight of a decrepit old man, a sick man, a corpse, and a monk. Those were the 4 things he seen, okay? He saw. Seeing the first 3, he realized that he also was subject to old age, disease, and death, but he noticed that the monk looked serene. At that point, he renounced that all attachments to the physical world, stating that worldly happiness is transitory. How could he enjoy his life if he knew that someday he would get old and sick and die? Okay, after the age of 29, he left home, he left his wife, he left his son, and he went looking for a spiritual teacher. He worked with 2 primary teachers of different forms of meditation that were practiced at the time in India. He mastered both forms quickly and ascended to the position of a teacher himself, but ultimately he found that the techniques did not produce the state of complete freedom from desire that he sought. Pause. So, he goes out, he searched for these spiritual teachers, he learned from them, he masters it, he becomes a teacher himself, and he is still not fulfilled. Listen, on our journeys, we are going to do similar things. I have done similar things. I have tapped into things, I have studied things, I have learned about things, and I'm like, okay, I know that now, I can tell somebody else about it, but I still don't feel the passion. I still don't feel, I'm always looking for the next thing. I'm always looking for something that's really going to feed my soul, that's really going to make me want to keep going. Those moments will come. But just know that it's all a part of your contract. It's all a part of the great divine. It's all a part of your purpose. It's all a part of the walk of life that you have to walk. I just wanted to add that little part in right there. So after that, he undertook yoga practices, and he studied breath control. He was determined to attain enlightenment by practicing self-mortification. He abstained from food almost entirely, eventually becoming frail and weak. Finally, he reached a conclusion that extremes of self-denial would eventually end in death and a resumption of endless will. So birth, death, rebirth. Recalling a state of blissful tranquility and freedom from all desires that he had once experienced as a child, sitting under a tree and watching his father, he went and sat under a large tree that became known as the Bo tree, the tree of enlightenment. I'm sure we have all heard about that tree. Aware that he needed to recover his strength, he accepted some food from a villager, and he remained underneath the tree from early morning to sunset, maintaining a fierce resolve to find an answer to human suffering. At this time, he would rather perish than to get up from his seat until he received full illumination. Plunging himself into deep meditation, by nightfall, he had entered into a superconscious state of illumination that is said to have lasted 49 days. He became fully enlightened, and the last discovered state of being for which he had been searching. This state was accompanied by insights that became the center of his teaching. So he was just that dedicated. He was just that dedicated. He was like, I know there's more. I need to find it. I need to find my fulfillment. I need to be enlightened. I'm going to sit here and search for insight. He used all the things that he was taught. And if you go back and you think about the 5 stages, they are repetitive. They are not in order. They happen depending on where we are in life at the time. He was determined to figure out what it is that would enlighten him, what it is that he was supposed to do, his purpose, his fulfilling destiny, if you will. It goes on to talk about how he didn't believe in the supreme being along the lines of how we believe in the supreme being, but he believed in deities, and all the deities that he knew in this realm, they all lacked one thing, and that was the ability to become enlightened. So he is more than ever dedicated now, because he is questioning, why is it that these great beings, these great teachers, these great masters, all great beings, all great, all fulfilling, but they still lack enlightenment? How do one achieve enlightenment from his studies, from his culture? How does one achieve that? Although he would not have knowledge making contact with the divine, the Buddha did establish contact with a universal level of wisdom and insight that transcends ordinary human awareness and qualifies as the first stage of a sacred contract. So remember when I spoke about this before, in order to contact the divine, in order to reach them, in order to be able to tap in, to listen, you have to first go outside of the conscious mind. You have to raise your vibrations to a certain extent that goes beyond what you would see or think about in this physical world. In order to really obtain the things that you are looking for, the downloads, the insight, the direction, you have to find yourself in a form of meditation, silence, God, grounding. And sometimes it can be quick, and sometimes you'll be there for some time until you get to a certain point where you can then hear or see beyond this physical realm. He also went through a renaming. He was known as, if I'm not mistaken, I think it's Gautama, but then it was changed to the Buddha. He too went through temptation. Things were sent to him to distract him from his path, from his enlightenment, from his awakening, just like Jesus, just like Abraham, just like everybody else I've already mentioned. The Buddha had people come to him to try to seduce him in lust, as he had always feared. The myth is a suitable expression of experience common to most contemplators. The seeker eventually is committed to an attempt, overcomes doubt and inertia, and sets to work. This conjures up the demons of fear from the unconscious. All the habit-hardened dispositions protest against their coming destruction, but good habits sustain the seeker's resolve. The waves of fear pass, and doubts arise about whether the candidate is really equal to the challenge. If the seeker possesses genuine self-confidence, the doubts are vanquished. The last peril is, of course, the deadliest. Perfect love may cast out fear, but it also is able to easily change into personal pleasure. According to the tradition, the Buddha had seen all rebirths on the wheel of existence, going back to the animal kingdom, including a past life stage. He had realized the tragedy of identifying with the ego as separate from everyone and everything else. Seeing ourselves as separate from the outside world gives rise to passionate craving, hatred, and ignorance. These forms of attachment are the principal causes of suffering. So he came across this. He had other people that was wanting him to just be quiet, keep it to yourself, and live. They were like, you have come to a part of your life where you have gained knowledge of all these teachings. Yeah, you can go and tell the world, or you can stay here and you can just live this life and act like you know nothing, basically. Which is what people do. People will do that. Because of fear. The main thing is because of fear. So that too was another temptation for him. However, he chose to teach. He went wandering the land. He had to beg for food. He had to beg for shelter. But he knew that at this point, this was his path. He was meant to go out and spread the word of things that he had learned, to enlighten others, to wake others. So that's what he did. He was actually 35 when he achieved enlightenment and assumed the name Buddha. So he was 35 when he achieved enlightenment, but he taught for the next 45 years. He was teaching insights that he had learned just in stillness and deep meditation, sitting under the Bo tree. The challenges and the opportunities that the Buddha faced during his 6 years of preparation, and even during the Great Enlightenment, weren't it. He went throughout the rest of his life. He carried out numerous assignments regarding his teachings and the orders of monks and nuns he found. So just like Abraham, just like Jesus, just like Muhammad, the Buddha had to enter into the fullness of his sacred contract over time. First by being mentored, and then by undergoing tests that challenged the strength of his soul over the force of his ego. Same with us. We are going to constantly go through things and undergo things to fulfill our contract, to enter into the fullness of our contract, to even know what our contract is, to begin to peel those layers of our contract back. We're going to have to go through tests. We're going to have to go through assignments. We will be met with opposition and all that kind of stuff. I see a rainbow. Just like those who came before us. I want everybody to remember that no effort by itself can induce the process of soul clarity. No effort by itself can induce the process of soul clarity. We may choose to engage in a discipline, but the divine chooses when we will be given sight. So, just because we do with all things I've mentioned, it's still the divine's will or time that we receive the things that are meant for us to receive, that are meant for us to know. It's still divine timing. Now we're going to talk about their unified message of ongoing guidance. So Abram, Jesus, Muhammad, and the Buddha share an awakening process that is an archetypal journey. The progression they experienced as they moved into their enlightenment corresponds to the stages through which each one of us will pass at one time or another. For it appears that this is the way that the journey is written. Even the small fragments of their histories presented here suggest, consequently, human profiles rather than lives that needed no spiritual instruction, introspection, prayer, or self-discipline. We can all find similar profiles in the lives of more recent mystics. By comparing our own doubts, questions, fears, and reluctance with theirs, we can see that the archetypal roadmap created by their spiritual awakenings is already at work within us. We may not yet have progressed as far as they, but we are on the same path. They do not exist in some stratosphere impossibly high above us, beyond our reach. Each of these spiritual masters had a moment in which his soul was called forth and the deeper significance of his life was revealed to him. Each in his own way required guidance and education, and each was brought to a series of surrender points. Remember, in the 5 stages, surrender is the one that you will do the absolute most, no matter where you are. So each was brought to a series of surrender points, tested to see if his faith had become stronger than his need for earthly power. Upon completing the stages of spiritual awakening, they all maintained a profound spiritual practice while teaching those around them. Our pathway, like theirs, has assignments and tests, each one part of a spiritual learning process that is meant to help us move through our illusions about the relative merit of external power and inner power. We need never feel either that we have too far to travel or that we have already arrived and we can't stop practicing the everyday virtues of compassion and mindfulness. Our journey doesn't just end when we learn something. Our journey you can't pause it. You can't start and stop. You can't just expect to get to a certain level and then that's it. You technically, based upon the contract that you don't even remember, you didn't sign up for that. You did not sign up to get to, let's just say, for instance, stage 3, and now you are content with that, but your contract calls you to reach stage 7. It just doesn't work like that. We all have assignments. We all have tests. We all are called to evolve. We are not meant to stay the same. We are meant to teach and help others walk their path, awaken to their path, awaken to their true self, awaken to the knowledge, but mostly awaken to the power that is within us all. We are all meant to come here, learn, fulfill our contracts, reach our highest self, teach others, and so on and so forth. There is one final and most important lesson to be taken from observing their lives. Alright, so along the way, each spiritual master was contracted to meet not only his most faithful disciples, but also those who would bring out the shadows and the fears, the tyrants that I talked about before. Each had to experience resistance, and betrayal. The same thing that we have to go through. We deal with this on a day-to-day basis. Do we not? We deal with this. The great religious leaders had to find their sacred contracts, and they had to overcome their own limitations, fears, and shadows. You and I may never become fully realized beings, at least in this lifetime, but all we actually need to do is strive to realize our fullest divine potential. That may not be the same potential as that of the masters that we've talked about. It may be less, it may be more, but it's our potential. And that's all that is expected of us. We have to strive. We have to really dive deep. Like, don't short yourself. Don't play it safe. Do that shadow work. Tap in. Do that meditation. Seek. Dive deeper. If any of y'all are really tapped in, when you talk to your team or you get some type of guidance or readings or counseling when it comes to the spiritual aspects of your life, you have heard them say several times, go deeper, dive deeper, go more, go beyond that. You have to go beyond what you see, what you can physically see. You have to really reflect. You have to really sit with self, unpack with self, learn self, grow with self. Give yourself grace. Don't get me wrong. Give yourself grace, but don't sell yourself short. So, their lives provided a roadmap for charting the stages of your own spiritual transformation. In the next chapter, we're going to talk about a different map, one that charts the structure and flow of energy within your body and spirit. We're going to talk about the chakras. We're going to talk about the chakras. And then after we talk about the chakras, we'll talk about another map. We're going to talk about the cosmic wheel. Because the cosmic wheel, it will help you chart the significance of your personal team of archetypes. Everybody don't have the same archetypes, remember? So I know some of y'all are like, I'm ready to get into these archetypes. Listen, I can't skip. I cannot. Technically, I can just give you a list of archetypes and say, here you go. But how is that going to benefit you if you don't know how to tap into your contract? If you don't know what your contract is calling of you, it's wanting from you. If you don't know if you are even walking the path that you're supposed to be walking. So we cannot skip around in this book, okay? But we're going to tap into these chakras. We're going to learn about them. And then we're going to go into the cosmic wheel. But before we do too much, we're going to explore the nature of archetypes and the role that they play in your life. Because remember, when you learn your archetypes, when you know your archetypes, you can tap into them and you can use them to get through this journey a little bit quicker. You can use them to recognize where you are in your spiritual walk of life and how to operate, how to maneuver through your path, through your purpose. Your archetypes, remember, are in a way like your guides. They are different, but the same way we can tap into and talk to our guides, we can tap into these archetypes, and they are going to benefit us. They really are. They're going to benefit us in a major way. Okay, so let's keep it going. I got to check my battery percentage because, again, I'm coming to y'all in the park today. All right? So, speaking archetypes, the 4 principal energy companions. Archetypes are your energy guides to your highest potential, the fulfillment of the 5 stages of your sacred contract. You have 4 constant archetypes at work in your life. We will look and we will work with all 4 universal archetypes, okay? So we all have the child. Let's just start there. We all have the child. The child is among the most powerful patterns in our psyches because we are born into it. It is our first state of consciousness. That's where we're going to start. We're going to start with the child. The child actually has many aspects because you got to think about the wounded orphan, the wounded or the orphan child, to which many people can relate. And then there's the magical child, there's the innocent child. This is just where we're starting off. Engagement with the magical child is rare, but it is pure delight to be in the company of someone who radiates that archetype. Okay, so the book is talking about this gentleman named George and how his father expected him to follow traditional career in academics and things of that nature. But the thing about George is, George was consumed early. He had an interest in spirituality and alternative healing. His entire life was a mythic journey. So he explored the nature of the human consciousness. He consciously lived in 2 realms. How many people right now can honestly say that they consciously live in 2 realms? How many people feel like they live in the physical and the spiritual? And I don't mean, listen, don't be in my comments talking about, I live in both because I do such and such, such and such, because I go through spiritual things every day. Don't do that. I'm not doubting you, but don't do that. You cannot say because I tap in every day I live in both. Because sometimes, some point throughout my day, I do this, so I live in both. No. Those who know. How many people can honestly say that they consciously live in 2 realms, the physical and the spiritual? I myself, for a fact, live in 2 realms. Actually, most of the time, I live more in the spiritual realm than I do in the physical. And I can explain this in another video because I have so much to unpack with y'all of how I operate and how I do my spiritual work and how I manifest and how I connect and how I spend my all day every day with spirit. Okay? I just want y'all to be mindful of this, okay? Just think about it. Think about all this stuff as you hear me talk, as you hear me ramble, as you hear me say something crazy. I might say something off the wall. Who knows? Because I'm not editing this video, okay? I'm not doing any edits today. This is it. What you get is what you get. Okay, back to the story. George, as a child, lived in 2 realms. He spoke about having conversations with nature spirits, wind spirits, garden spirits, and angels. Making this type of inner realm dialogue seems exactly what it should be. Natural. He did this from start. How many people when you were small would go outside? I'm gonna use me for an example. When I was a child, I would go outside of my grandmother's house in her yard, and I'm surrounded by all these trees, right? I would go outside, I would close my eyes, I would do some kind of little dance where I jumped around in a circle and I made noises, and I was like, yep, I'm gonna make the wind blow. And I would sit and practice with the trees and talk to the trees, wind spirits. To this day, I still work with wind spirits. But how many people can say, as a child, do you even remember? Do you remember exploring anything of the nature? Anything, garden spirits, wind spirits, talking to angels? Anything, quote unquote, imaginary? Or what other people would tell you was imaginary, but you just knew for a fact that it wasn't. Let's keep going. When dealing with the inner child reminds us above all things that, of course, to love ourselves, to go back to heal ourselves, but our inner child reminds us not to take stuff so serious, not to be so serious, to live back in that imaginary land, to be carefree, to have that free spirit. That is what our inner child reminds us. It demands that of us, if you will. And a lot of times we have to stop and we'll tap in, and our team is like, just wing it. Just go. Just live. Just do this. Just do that. And for me, myself, and I am one of the goofiest people you will ever meet. I do have moments, though, when I get so deep into my spiritual work and I'm on a roll and I'm like, okay, what's next? Let's go. And my team say something like, today, take the day off. Go do this. Go do that. And at first I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to do this because it's going to benefit and it's going to have something to do with what I'm working on currently. And then I come to find out that it has nothing to do with what I'm working on currently. And I'm like, I just wasted time. I'm trying to get this stuff taken. I'm trying to get stuff taken care of. Y'all got me at the park. Confirmation. Because sometimes we get too invested. Sometimes we get so wrapped up in work and the things that we do that we forget how to simply just be free and live. To just explore. To just be. To really take time out and not only know yourself, but love yourself. Have fun. Anyway, let's keep going. All children can see into the world when they are very young. The door between worlds closes as you get older and you begin to believe that there is no such thing. George, the guy that I was just telling you about, who lived consciously in both worlds, this archetype and its imaginative world had become his companion. He was an extraordinary character, but his experience is not unique. Others throughout history have been aware of the living presence of archetypes and been comfortable discussing them and discoursing with them. They manifest themselves within time and yet are timeless. They constitute the veiled essence of things. So, the Swiss psychologist Carl Jung, he was the first to define and explore extensively the nature and role of the universal archetypes in human consciousness. By their very nature, he explained archetypes have their origins in the dawn of human history. The psyche is not of today, he wrote. Its ancestry goes back many millions of years. Individual consciousness is only the flower and the fruit of a season sprung beneath the earth. He tied archetypes to his concept of the collective unconscious, which is distinct from the individual unconscious. The collective unconscious is the inherited experience of the entire human race. Your conscious is affected by this greater unconscious, and yours also makes a contribution to the collective. He goes on to say that since archetypes or norms of myth are common to human species, they are inherently expressive. of coming human needs, instincts, and potentials. He had a theory, thank you, he had a theory of archetypes, and he said just as some kind of analytical technique is needed to understand a dream, so a knowledge of mythology is needed in order to grasp the meaning of a content deriving from deeper levels in the psyche. The collective unconscious, so far as we can say anything about it at all, appears to consist of mythological motives and images, for which reasons the myth of all nations are its real exponents. In fact, the whole of mythology could be taken as a sort of projection of the collective unconscious. The book and the work that has been researched, it implies that although archetypes are patterns of influence that are both ancient and universal, they become quite personalized when they are a part of an individual's own psyche. Since your sacred contract is embodied in a support system of 12 archetypes, perhaps the most advantaged way to think of them is as intimate companions. The nature of your archetype is both intimate and impersonal. Viewed through the heart, they are personal enough to be called companions. Viewed through the mind, they are impersonal, symbolic patterns that serve in the energetic organization of your spiritual evolution. Just as your archetypes have a dual nature, you too have the constant challenge of holding within yourself a personal heart and a symbolic mind. Don't misinterpret this statement to mean that all relationships and life experiences will be simple and painless if you just treat your interactions impersonally or impassively. That is nonsense, so let's not do that. What we need to do is make a conscious choice and take responsibility for ourselves, including our thoughts and attitudes. Working with your archetypal patterns is the best way to become conscious of self, the effects of your actions, and the need for choosing wisely every day. The 4 archetypes of survival is the child, the victim. Current attitudes hold that our characters and personalities are formed during childhood through a combination of nature and nurture. The first 2 decades of life, we make our first promises to ourselves to provide for and to protect ourselves. And it goes on to talk about how many people promise themselves as adolescents that they would never be physically abused or humiliated again. Children make vows to themselves that they will become things like scientists, artists, mothers, fathers, or simply find a way to become wealthy. These commitments are part of our path in the physical world. They are all influenced by the 4 primary archetypes. During the first years of our lives, we come to realize that our quality of our physical lives depend on our sense of personal power, on our ability to survive. Before we become emotionally and spiritually empowered, we must engage our personal power in the material world. We also begin to understand that we must deal with moral issues or suffer the consequences. In engaging with the physical world and moral choices that present themselves, we develop self-esteem. This is the beginning of spiritual maturity. The 4 primary archetypes symbolize our major life changes and challenges, and how we choose to survive. Together, they represent the issues, the fears, the vulnerabilities that cause us to negotiate away the power of our spirits within the physical world. They also come to represent spiritual strengths for dealing with real-life spiritual issues. The 4 archetypes are like the 4 legs of a table. on which our sacred contracts rest. These 4 legs, or these table legs, they represent our relationship to the ground. Remember, I talked about grounding. They represent our relationship to the ground beneath our feet and to the universal energy that supports our life. They might be straight or curved or embellished with carvings and images, depending on how those 4 archetypes work within our psyches during the course of our lives. But they need to be stable to support the weight of our sacred contracts, our life, and our missions. All 4 archetypes influence how we relate to material power, how we respond to authority, and how we make choices. The archetypal energies are neutral. They are neutral. Although it can be difficult to see how the victim and the prostitute and all, so on and so forth can provide us with powerful and supportive imaginary, they do, and you will see it. You'll come to see how even the most common variant of the child archetype, the wounded child, can help you deal with everyday life today. The 4 archetypes, the main 4 archetypes, are the intimate companions of your intuition. They make you conscious of your vulnerabilities, your fear of being victimized. They allow you to see how you sabotage your creative opportunities or abort your dreams and your future. They will become your allies in fulfilling opportunities and dreams. Your archetypes will become your guardians and will preserve your integrity, refusing to allow you to negotiate it away under any circumstances. Your archetype can help you transcend the shadow belief that everyone has a price and allow you to see that you are not for sale. They will allow you to become completely self-reliant, and through them you will come to see options where others see excuses. The richest reward in working with these survival archetypes reveal itself in the manner in which your contract unfolds. While it is given that you have contracts to meet certain people, it is not determined ahead of time what kind of interaction you will have with each of them. That is up to you, and that is up to them. You can choose how you interact, but the more conscious you are about the patterns that influence your behavior, the more likely it is that your choices and the lessons you get from them will be positive. If your choice is formed only by your unconscious, however, and you are unaware of your archetypal energies influencing you, you will more likely act out of insecurity or defensiveness. By remaining aware of the archetypal energies, you stay conscious to both your divinity and your potential in the everyday world. Through your archetypes, you will find your own middle way. And the middle way is the path to your sacred contract, the path of your sacred contract. So, we're going to stop here because I just unpacked a lot. I don't know about y'all, but that's a lot. We're going to stop right here. I hope you guys got something from this. I hope that you see how knowing what archetypes you are working with at the time can make or break you. And we are going to learn how to utilize them. We're going to learn how to tap into them, how to know them when we come across these encounters in our everyday life. So we will pick up where I left off on the next video. I hope y'all have a good rest of the day. I hope I said something that can help you on your spiritual journey. Again, I am here. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, all that good stuff, I will be here. I will be available to help you. If it's something that I don't even know, I will find out the answer for you. But that's all, my good people. Y'all have a good day. Come back next time. Peace, love, happiness, all that good stuff.